Welcome to this relaxing journey into the Brotherhood of Steel. Let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from tonight. And if you enjoy these calming explorations, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one. The Brotherhood of Steel has stood as one of the most recognizable and influential factions across the Fallout series, shaping stories and philosophies from the very first game to the most recent entries. Born out of the ruins of the old world, the Brotherhood blends military order, religious zeal for technology, and isolationist tendencies into a faction that players have encountered in countless forms. It is a group that can be both protector and oppressor, often depending on who tells the story. The Brotherhood traces its origins to the United States military, specifically to a man named Roger Maxson. Before the bombs fell, Maxson was a captain stationed at the Mariposa military base in California. There, the military had contracted West Tech scientists to experiment with the forced evolutionary virus, using soldiers as test subjects. Horrified by these actions, Maxson executed the scientists, mutinied against his superiors, and led his men and their families into the desert. This event marked the birth of the Brotherhood of Steel. Maxson and his followers traveled to an old military bunker in Lost Hills, California, where they fortified themselves and began shaping the ideology that would define the Brotherhood. They saw themselves as the inheritors of advanced technology, believing that only they could be trusted to preserve it from the chaos of the wasteland. To the Brotherhood, technology was both salvation and danger. It had nearly destroyed the world through nuclear war, but it also represented the only hope of rebuilding. This dual belief gave rise to the Brotherhood's central mission: to recover, safeguard, and control all advanced technology. The early Brotherhood was heavily militarized. Its ranks were organized with strict discipline, drawing from the structure of the old military. Titles like Paladin, Knight, and Scribe reflected both martial tradition and a kind of neo-medieval order. Paladins served as the Brotherhood's warriors, clad in suits of power armor that made them walking tanks. Knights were tasked with engineering and maintenance, ensuring that the Brotherhood's technology remained functional. Scribes served as scholars and scientists, preserving knowledge and researching new advancements. This hierarchy gave the Brotherhood a unique culture, one part military, one part monastery, and one part cult. Power armor quickly became the most visible symbol of the Brotherhood. Suits like the T-51B, originally deployed by the U.S. military during the Anchorage reclamation, became synonymous with their image. To many wastelanders, the sight of armored figures patrolling ruins was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. These suits were among the most advanced technologies left from before the war, capable of shrugging off bullets and radiation alike. The Brotherhood maintained them religiously, ensuring that no outsider could gain access. In Fallout lore, the Brotherhood is often described as hoarders, refusing to share technology with those they deem unworthy. This has led to constant tension between them and the scattered survivors, who see the Brotherhood as arrogant overlords rather than benevolent protectors. One of the earliest moments that revealed the Brotherhood's true philosophy came in the very first Fallout game. When the player encounters the Brotherhood at Lost Hills, they are asked to retrieve an ancient piece of technology as proof of worthiness. This test underscores their belief that outsiders must prove themselves before being trusted with even the smallest piece of knowledge. Unlike other factions that trade or cooperate more openly, the Brotherhood tends to demand loyalty and obedience before offering any form of help. In Fallout 2, the Brotherhood plays a much smaller role, appearing only in small outposts that monitored technology in Northern California, reflecting its declining influence in that part of the wasteland. However, even in its reduced state, the faction is still portrayed as obsessed with technology and with preserving its legacy. The Brotherhood's influence grew much stronger with Fallout 3, where they became one of the central forces in the capital wasteland. Here, under the leadership of Elder Lyons, the Brotherhood took on a more altruistic role, focusing on protecting settlers and combating super mutants rather than simply hoarding technology. This shift caused a schism within the faction, as more traditional members saw Lyons as betraying the Brotherhood's core values. The Outcasts, a splinter faction in Fallout 3, represented this purist ideology. They rejected Lyons' focus on helping people and returned to the old mission of technology above all else. The existence of the Outcasts highlights how divided the Brotherhood has always been, with different chapters interpreting the mission in different ways. For some, the Brotherhood is a beacon of hope, clad in power armor and defending the weak. For others, it is a cold and authoritarian order, more interested in machines than in human lives. Fallout New Vegas introduced players to yet another version of the Brotherhood, this time in the Mojave. The Mojave chapter had suffered devastating losses after a war with the new California Republic, leaving them weakened and forced into hiding at Hidden Valley. This Brotherhood was isolationist, paranoid, and deeply distrustful of outsiders. Led by Elder McNamara, they rarely ventured beyond their bunkers, sending only patrols to scavenge technology. Their survival was precarious, and the courier could influence their fate through choices, either helping them re-emerge into the world or ensuring their decline. This contrast between Lyons' Brotherhood in the east and McNamara's Brotherhood in the west demonstrates how fragmented the faction has become. Each chapter interprets the mission differently, influenced by local circumstances, leaders, and the struggles of survival. While the overall philosophy of preserving technology remains constant, the Brotherhood is not a monolithic organization. Instead, it is a network of loosely connected chapters that can vary drastically in behavior and goals. The Brotherhood's technology worship often crosses into near religious reverence. Scribes meticulously record schematics and preserve pre-war texts, treating them almost like holy scriptures. Paladins undergo rituals and oaths that echo knightly traditions, reinforcing the idea that they are guardians of sacred relics. Even their very name, the Brotherhood of Steel, evokes a blend of medieval brotherhoods and futuristic machines. This unique fusion of imagery has helped cement them as one of the most iconic groups in video game history. Their obsession with technology has sometimes made them blind to the needs of ordinary people. Many Wastelanders criticize the Brotherhood for refusing to share weapons, medical equipment, or even clean water if they believe it could be misused. In Fallout 4, the Brotherhood's arrival in the Commonwealth demonstrates this arrogance. Led by Elder Arthur Maxon, a descendant of the Maxon line, who was appointed elder at a young age to unify the East Coast chapter, they deploy massive airships and armies of soldiers to reclaim technology in the region. Maxon's Brotherhood is uncompromising, viewing synths, mutants, and even rival factions as existential threats that must be destroyed. This authoritarian approach divides players, as some admire the discipline and strength of the Brotherhood, while others see them as tyrants. The Pridwin, the Brotherhood's airship introduced in Fallout 4, became a powerful symbol of their might. This massive flying fortress dominated the skies of Boston, projecting their presence across the wasteland. To settlers, it was a sign that the Brotherhood had arrived to impose order. To enemies, it was a looming reminder that resistance would be crushed. The Pridwen also symbolized the Brotherhood's access to advanced technology, something few other factions could rival. Despite their harshness, the Brotherhood often portrays themselves as saviors. They argue that without their efforts, technology would be abused by raiders, mutants, or power-hungry warlords. In their view, they are the only ones capable of wielding such power responsibly. This self-appointed guardianship is central to their identity. Yet, the series repeatedly shows that their rigid ideology can be just as dangerous as the threats they fight against. The Brotherhood's refusal to adapt or compromise often leads to conflict with both outsiders and their own members. Even within their leadership, tensions are constant. Elders who deviate from the traditional mission, like lions, risk being branded heretics. Commanders who cling too tightly to dogma, like McNamara, risk dooming their chapters to irrelevance. The Brotherhood's history is filled with these cycles of reform and rigidity, showing how fragile their balance truly is. The faction's aesthetic has also left a huge cultural mark on the Fallout series. The iconic T-51B power armor helmet has appeared on game covers, merchandise, and promotional art, becoming almost synonymous with the Fallout brand itself. Players who see that helmet immediately associate it with the Brotherhood, even though not all power armor wearers are members. This image of a faceless, armored guardian perfectly captures the mix of hope and fear that the Brotherhood embodies. The Brotherhood of Steel's complex relationship with other factions across the wasteland has defined much of Fallout's storytelling. Unlike raiders or super mutants, who are clear enemies, the Brotherhood often occupies a gray area where their goals sometimes align with the players, but often come into conflict depending on circumstances. In Fallout 3, for example, the Brotherhood under Elder Lyons allied with the Lone Wanderer against the Enclave, providing crucial support in the battle for Project Purity. Yet the Outcasts, a splinter faction, were far less welcoming, refusing to aid the player unless their obsession with technology was respected. These dual approaches highlight how fractured the Brotherhood truly is, even within a single region. One of the most important aspects of the Brotherhood is their strict code of hierarchy. Unlike the more democratic New California Republic or the chaotic Raiders, the Brotherhood functions under a military chain of command. At the top sits the Elder, the ultimate authority within a chapter. Beneath them are paladins, who serve as the elite warriors, and knights, who maintain and repair equipment. Scribes, who may seem less imposing, are essential to preserving the Brotherhood's mission by maintaining knowledge and conducting research. This rigid hierarchy ensures discipline, but also limits flexibility. When faced with crises, chapters can struggle to adapt if orders are unclear or outdated. The Brotherhood's reverence for power armor is not just practical but symbolic. In the Wasteland, power armor is a relic of a bygone era of military might. To the Brotherhood, it represents both the destructive power of humanity and the potential for survival. Only trusted members are permitted to wear it, and the training required to operate it is extensive. This exclusivity reinforces their belief that outsiders are unworthy of such advanced tools. The result is a constant struggle between the Brotherhood and Wastelanders, who often view them as hoarders, keeping life-saving technology out of reach. The faction's obsession with control extends to their approach to mutants and synths. In Fallout 4, Elder Maxon's Brotherhood considered all synths to be abominations created by the Institute. To them, synths represented a dangerous blurring of the line between human and machine, a threat to the purity of humanity itself. Maxon's stance was uncompromising. Any synth, whether hostile or not, was considered a danger that had to be eradicated. This put the Brotherhood at odds with the Railroad, who sought to protect synths as living beings deserving of freedom. This conflict demonstrated how the Brotherhood's rigid philosophy often led them into battles that were as ideological as they were physical. The Brotherhood's history also includes moments of expansion and collapse. In Fallout Tactics, the Midwestern chapter of the Brotherhood ventured eastward, encountering new communities, enemies, and technologies. Unlike the isolationist Brotherhood seen elsewhere, the Midwestern chapter showed more flexibility, even recruiting outsiders and forming alliances. This made them controversial among Brotherhood purists, but also ensured their survival in a hostile new environment. While the Midwestern chapter is not part of Bethesda's canon, it illustrates the idea that the Brotherhood can adapt in surprising ways when necessity demands it. Technology itself plays a central role in the Brotherhood's lore. They are known to scour ruins for energy weapons, pre-war schematics, and forgotten caches of military hardware. Laser rifles, plasma pistols, and Gatling lasers are among the weapons most associated with them. In Fallout 3, players can even acquire unique Brotherhood technology, such as the Tesla cannon. This weapon, developed from salvaged Enclave designs, showcased the Brotherhood's ability to repurpose old-world tech for their own use. Their commitment to maintaining and upgrading weapons reflects their larger mission of ensuring humanity does not squander what little remains of its advanced knowledge. One of the Brotherhood's most enduring traits is their secrecy. While they present themselves as protectors of civilization, their true motives are often hidden from outsiders. Vault dwellers, chosen ones, couriers, and sole survivors have all encountered the Brotherhood's suspicion firsthand, forced to prove their worth before being trusted. This secrecy extends to their archives, which are filled with restricted data that even lower-ranking members cannot access. Only the scribes and elders fully understand the extent of what the Brotherhood has preserved, and this knowledge is guarded as fiercely as their weapons. The Brotherhood has also produced some of Fallout's most memorable leaders. Roger Maxon, their founder, set the stage by transforming a group of mutineers into a powerful new order. His descendants, such as Elder Arthur Maxon in Fallout 4, carried on his legacy with equal fervor. Arthur Maxon, in particular, is remembered for his youth and charisma, leading the Brotherhood with uncompromising zeal. To his followers, he embodied strength and destiny. To his critics, he represented authoritarianism and intolerance. Elder Lyons, by contrast, was far more compassionate, prioritizing human lives over technological hoarding. His interpretation of the Brotherhood split opinion both within the faction and among fans, showing how much a single leader can shape the group's direction. In Fallout New Vegas, Elder McNamara and Head Paladin Hardin represented two competing visions for the Mojave chapter. McNamara favored caution and secrecy, keeping the Brotherhood hidden at Hidden Valley. Hardin, however, pushed for a more aggressive return to the surface, believing the Brotherhood should assert its dominance. The Courier could influence this power struggle, helping to determine whether the Brotherhood remained in hiding or re-emerged as a force in the Mojave. This internal conflict mirrored the larger themes of the Brotherhood story across the series, the struggle between isolation and expansion, tradition and adaptation. The Brotherhood's role in Fallout 76 added a new dimension to their story. In the Steel Dawn and Steel Rain expansions, the Appalachian chapter emerged under the leadership of Paladin Romani and Knight Shin. Their arrival brought with it familiar tensions, Romani advocated for cooperation with locals, seeing the need to rebuild communities together. Shin, on the other hand, embodied the Brotherhood's stricter traditions, emphasizing control and authority. This clash gave players a chance to shape the direction of the Brotherhood once again, proving that even after centuries, the same ideological battles still plagued the faction. One of the Brotherhood's most iconic creations within Fallout lore is Liberty Prime, a giant robot originally developed by the United States before the war. Reclaimed and restored by the Brotherhood in Fallout 3, Liberty Prime became a symbol of their technological might. Towering above battlefields, it crushed enemies underfoot while delivering patriotic one-liners. Its reappearance in Fallout 4 cemented its place as both a weapon and a cultural symbol of the Brotherhood's obsession with pre-war technology. Liberty Prime was not just a machine but a statement. The Brotherhood had the power to reclaim and wield the most devastating weapons of the old world. The Brotherhood's impact extends beyond the games themselves. Their imagery has become one of Fallout's most enduring icons. The sight of a Brotherhood soldier in power armor has graced game covers, promotional material, and merchandise. Fans often associate the Brotherhood with the very identity of Fallout, even though the games feature many factions. This prominence reflects how central they are to the series' themes. They embody both the promise and peril of technology, the desire for order amid chaos, and the danger of ideology taken to extremes. At their core, the Brotherhood of Steel represents a paradox. They see themselves as humanity's saviors, yet their actions often make them humanity's oppressors. They fight to preserve technology, but in doing so, they sometimes deny others the chance to rebuild. Their members believe they are the chosen guardians of civilization, but the wasteland often views them as tyrants. This complexity is what makes them fascinating, both as allies and as enemies. They are not simply heroes or villains, but a reflection of how power, ideology, and survival can twist even noble intentions into something darker. For players, the Brotherhood presents an enduring question. Do you side with them, trusting that their discipline and resources can bring stability to a shattered world? Or do you oppose them, believing that their hoarding of technology and rigid ideology makes them just another form of tyranny? Fallout has never given a single answer, leaving it to each player to decide. That open-ended nature is what has allowed the Brotherhood to remain one of the most compelling elements of the series for over 2 decades. The Brotherhood of Steel's philosophy has always been deeply shaped by its origins in the aftermath of the Great War. When Roger Maxson and his fellow soldiers discovered the horrors of the forced evolutionary virus experiments at Mariposa Military Base, they abandoned their posts and went rogue. This act of defiance against the remnants of the United States government laid the foundation for the Brotherhood's worldview, the belief that unchecked science and unrestrained ambition had doomed humanity. From this trauma came their rigid philosophy of technological preservation and control. They would decide which technologies were safe to keep and which were too dangerous for widespread use. In many ways, their doctrine is less about rebuilding society and more about preventing another catastrophe. One of the ways the Brotherhood demonstrates its philosophy is through their treatment of outsiders. Unlike factions such as the New California Republic, which at least attempts to incorporate wastelanders into its system, the Brotherhood tends to remain insular. Outsiders who stumble upon their bunkers or patrols are often treated with suspicion or outright hostility. Players throughout the series have encountered Brotherhood checkpoints where they were disarmed or interrogated, reflecting the group's paranoia. And yet, When outsiders prove themselves useful or demonstrate technical skill, the Brotherhood occasionally grants them honorary membership. This tension between exclusivity and necessity illustrates how their survival sometimes forces them to bend their own rigid rules. The Brotherhood's emphasis on knowledge preservation is often overlooked compared to their obsession with power armor and weapons. Their scribes dedicate themselves to copying texts, recording discoveries, and safeguarding blueprints. In Fallout 3, the Citadel's archives contain extensive records of pre-war technologies meticulously maintained by the scribes. In Fallout New Vegas, the scribes at Hidden Valley are tasked with keeping data alive despite the chapter's declining strength. The Brotherhood's libraries are often some of the most advanced sources of knowledge in the post-nuclear world, yet their refusal to share this knowledge widely limits its potential to benefit humanity as a whole. To them, information is a resource to be controlled, not a gift to be shared. When discussing the Brotherhood, it is impossible to ignore the ideological splits that occur across its many chapters. The outcasts in Fallout 3 were perhaps the most famous example, formed when members of the Capital Wasteland chapter rejected Elder Lyon's more humanitarian approach. To the outcasts, Lyon's compassion for civilians represented a betrayal of the Brotherhood's mission. They withdrew and created their own faction dedicated solely to technology preservation, even if it meant abandoning human lives. This schism highlighted the fragility of the Brotherhood's unity. Their doctrine leaves little room for compromise, meaning disagreements often lead to splintering rather than reconciliation. These fractures are also apparent in the Mojave chapter, where Elder McNamara's conservative approach clashed with Head Paladin Hardin's aggressive vision. If the courier sided with Hardin, the chapter could emerge from hiding and pursue a more expansionist path. If McNamara remained in power, the Brotherhood stayed underground, weakened but more cautious. This player-driven choice reinforced the theme that the Brotherhood's fate often depends less on its grand ideology and more on the personal convictions of its leaders. A single elder can steer a chapter toward war, peace, isolation, or cooperation. The Brotherhood's power armor has become one of the most recognizable images in Fallout, and for good reason. Originating as a pre-war United States military project, the T-51 model was first deployed during the Anchorage reclamation before the bombs fell. When the Brotherhood took possession of stockpiles of this armor, it became both a practical weapon and a symbol of their authority. Walking through the wasteland in power armor instantly marks a character as Brotherhood, a blend of knightly imagery and futuristic technology. Later iterations, such as the T-60 and the advanced suits used by the Enclave, further cemented power armor as a central piece of Fallout's identity. The Brotherhood's devotion to maintaining these suits reflects their belief that humanity's salvation lies in protecting rather than reinventing technology. Yet power armor is not invincible. Stories within the series reveal how scarcity of parts, fuel, and training often limits the Brotherhood's ability to field large numbers of suits. In Fallout 4, for example, the player is introduced to power armor early, but must constantly scavenge fusion cores to keep it operational. This gameplay mechanic reflects the reality of the Brotherhood's own struggles. Maintaining such advanced equipment in a shattered world requires enormous resources, and only the Brotherhood has the infrastructure to sustain it on a large scale. This scarcity is part of why they guard their technology so jealously. To them, handing over power armor to outsiders would be wasteful, even reckless. The Brotherhood's relationship with the Enclave has also defined much of their story. In Fallout 2, the Chosen One and the Brotherhood both confronted the Enclave's authoritarian vision for humanity. In Fallout 3, the conflict escalated when the Enclave attempted to seize control of Project Purity, forcing the Brotherhood to intervene. The sight of Liberty Prime striding into battle against the Enclave's forces became one of the most memorable images in the series. For the Brotherhood, defeating the Enclave was not just a tactical necessity, but a moral victory. It reinforced their identity as humanity's protectors against those who would abuse technology for domination. Yet in doing so, the Brotherhood often ignored their own authoritarian tendencies, showing how blurred the line between them and their enemies can be. The Brotherhood's expansion across the continent also speaks to their adaptability. Chapters in California, the Mojave, the Capital Wasteland, and Appalachia all share the same origin, but evolved in unique ways. Some became more open to outsiders, others more rigid. Some thrived, others dwindled into obscurity. This patchwork of chapters reflects the difficulty of maintaining a unified ideology in a fractured world. Each region's unique challenges forced the Brotherhood to make compromises, whether they admitted it or not. These variations also provide players with fresh perspectives on the faction, ensuring that the Brotherhood never feels entirely the same from one game to the next. The symbolism of the Brotherhood has always leaned heavily on medieval imagery. They are often described as knights of the post-nuclear wasteland, clad in armor, sworn to oaths, and guided by strict codes. Their paladins serve much like knightly champions, while their scribes act as scholars akin to monks preserving knowledge in monasteries. This medieval framing helps explain their appeal. In a chaotic, lawless wasteland, the Brotherhood offers structure, discipline, and ritual. Yet, just like historical knights, they can also be oppressive, enforcing their will with steel and fire. This duality makes them both admirable and threatening, depending on perspective. The Brotherhood's obsession with purity also extends to its members. Initiates must undergo rigorous training and indoctrination to join. In some chapters, being born into the Brotherhood is the only guaranteed path to membership, with children raised from birth to embrace its values. Outsiders who join often face hazing, suspicion, or worse. This insularity breeds loyalty, but also stagnation. The Brotherhood's reluctance to bring in fresh perspectives can trap them in cycles of repeating the same mistakes. Even so, when they do open their doors to outsiders, those individuals often prove crucial. Characters like the player themselves show that sometimes fresh blood is exactly what the Brotherhood needs to survive. One fascinating aspect of the Brotherhood is how differently they are portrayed in each game. In Fallout 1 and 2, they were mysterious and powerful, glimpsed only occasionally as shadowy guardians of advanced technology. In Fallout 3, they took center stage as major allies against the Enclave. In New Vegas, they were weakened, secretive, and divided. In Fallout 4, they returned in force, arriving in the skies aboard the Prydwen airship, projecting strength across the Commonwealth. In Fallout 76, they appeared in a different light, struggling to assert themselves in Appalachia. This shifting portrayal reflects both the flexibility of the Fallout series and the enduring intrigue of the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood's cultural impact outside the games cannot be understated. Fans of the series often gravitate toward their imagery, cosplaying as armored paladins or displaying Brotherhood banners at conventions. Merchandise featuring their insignia is among the most popular Fallout memorabilia. Even people unfamiliar with Fallout recognize the Brotherhood's power armor as a symbol of the franchise. This cultural resonance demonstrates how the Brotherhood transcended their role as just another faction to become the very face of Fallout. At the heart of their appeal is a question that resonates with players. Should advanced technology be trusted to everyone, or should it be safeguarded by a chosen few? The Brotherhood's answer is always the latter, but Fallout invites players to challenge that view. Time and again, the game's present scenarios, where the Brotherhood's refusal to share technology comes into conflict with the needs of ordinary people. Sometimes, their secrecy prevents disaster. Other times, it condemns communities to struggle needlessly. This tension ensures that debates about the Brotherhood's morality continue long after players put down the controller. The Brotherhood's arsenal extends far beyond power armor. They are often depicted with laser rifles, plasma weapons, and Gatling lasers. These weapons, once the pride of pre-war militaries, are now rare treasures in the wasteland. By monopolizing them, the Brotherhood projects an image of overwhelming strength. In Fallout 4, patrols of Brotherhood soldiers armed with laser rifles serve as a reminder that they alone control these powerful relics. The psychological effect of such firepower is as important as the weapons themselves. To Wastelanders, the Brotherhood's armory makes them untouchable, reinforcing their reputation as the guardians of technology. Yet the Brotherhood is not invincible. Many chapters have fallen, and many elders have led their people to ruin. The Mojave chapter nearly collapsed under the weight of its isolation. The Capital Wasteland chapter fractured into outcasts. The Midwestern chapter strayed so far from the original mission that its place in canon remains debated. These failures reveal that the Brotherhood's rigid ideology can be as much a weakness as a strength. Their refusal to adapt often leads them to repeat mistakes, proving that survival in the wasteland requires more than clinging to old doctrines. Even with these weaknesses, the Brotherhood endures because they fulfill a role no other faction does. They embody humanity's obsession with its past, its fear of repeating mistakes, and its temptation to control knowledge for its own ends. In a world of chaos, they provide structure. In a world of scarcity, they hoard abundance. In a world of anarchy, they enforce order. Whether seen as saviors or tyrants, the Brotherhood of Steel remains one of Fallout's most fascinating creations, always forcing players to think about the price of survival and the cost of control. The Brotherhood of Steel has always held a unique position within the Fallout universe, not quite friend and not quite foe. Their goals align with others when the dangers of the wasteland grow too large to ignore, but just as often, their ideology pushes them into conflict with anyone who stands in the way of their technological mission. This duality is perhaps why they remain so intriguing to players. They are never a simple answer. Instead, they are a faction defined by contradictions, and in those contradictions lies the heart of their enduring story. At the center of these contradictions is their relationship with the people of the wasteland. Ordinary settlers often see the Brotherhood as distant, armored figures who swoop into towns to confiscate energy weapons or dismantle generators, judged too advanced. To those communities, the Brotherhood can feel less like guardians and more like raiders with a different coat of paint. And yet, those same settlers also whisper with awe when they see a paladin stride into battle, clad in power armor and wielding a laser rifle. Fear and admiration intertwine. That tension keeps the Brotherhood hovering between legend and menace. The Brotherhood's insignia tells much about their values. The emblem, a sword flanked by gears and framed by wings, is not just decoration. The sword represents their martial discipline, a reminder that their organization was born from soldiers who chose to uphold order in a world gone mad. The gears symbolize their reverence for technology, showing that machines are central to their identity. The wings convey the lofty ideals that the Brotherhood claims to embody, the idea that through control and discipline, they can lift humanity out of ruin. Every time a Brotherhood soldier bears this emblem on their chest plate, it speaks to the Order's core belief that steel and knowledge together form the foundation of survival. In Fallout 3, this emblem could be found painted across the Citadel, the Brotherhood's base of operations in the capital wasteland. The Citadel itself became a symbol of how the Brotherhood adapted to its environment. Once the ruins of the Pentagon, it was repurposed into a fortress brimming with archives, laboratories, and training halls. To settlers, the Citadel stood as a beacon of stability, though entry was tightly controlled. For the Brotherhood, it represented their ability to reclaim and transform the greatest symbols of pre-war power for their own mission. Few factions could claim to occupy such a monumental piece of history, and the Citadel cemented the Brotherhood's dominance in the region. The use of monumental bases is a recurring trait across Brotherhood chapters. In Fallout New Vegas, Hidden Valley served as their stronghold. Unlike the Citadel, Hidden Valley was not a beacon but a bunker, concealed beneath the sands, its entrances hidden by storms and patrols. Here, the Brotherhood was not triumphant but besieged, forced underground after repeated clashes with the new California Republic. This contrast between the proud Citadel and the secretive Hidden Valley shows how differently chapters live depending on circumstance. In some regions, they thrive as conquerors. In others, they survive like hermits, clinging to scraps of power. Fallout 4 expanded this pattern with the arrival of the Pridwin, the massive airship that announced Elder Maxon's dominance over the Commonwealth. Unlike the stationary Citadel or the hidden bunkers, the Pridwin symbolized mobility and projection of force. Settlers across Boston could look skyward and see the Brotherhood's floating fortress looming above. Its presence was not just military but psychological, a reminder that the Brotherhood could strike anywhere, anytime. With vertibirds buzzing around its decks and soldiers disembarking in gleaming armor, the Pridwin became one of the most striking images in the series. It was a show of strength that made other factions reconsider their ambitions. But behind these grand images lies a fragile reality. The Brotherhood's reliance on advanced technology is both their strength and their greatest vulnerability. Power armor requires constant maintenance. Energy weapons need ammunition that is difficult to reproduce. Vertibirds require fuel, parts, and pilots trained in their use. Without their infrastructure of scribes and knights, their martial might would quickly crumble. This is why the Brotherhood guards its resources so jealously. To outsiders, their hoarding may seem selfish, but to them, every rifle or reactor is a lifeline that cannot be squandered. This fragility is echoed in their politics. The Brotherhood's rigid hierarchy is meant to provide stability, but it often results in infighting when leaders disagree. The divisions between Elder Lions and the outcasts in the Capital Wasteland, or between Elder McNamara and Hardin in the Mojave, show how brittle their unity can be. Even in Appalachia, Paladin Romani and Knight Shin quarreled over ideology, forcing their chapter to wrestle with the same questions that haunted others before them. These conflicts reveal that the Brotherhood's greatest enemy may not be the Enclave, mutants, or raiders, but themselves, and yet their persistence is undeniable. Fallout after Fallout, the Brotherhood emerges again, reshaped but still recognizable. In some games they are saviors, standing beside the player in the fight for humanity's future. In others, they are antagonists, obstacles to progress who must be challenged. This adaptability ensures that they remain central to Fallout's identity. Players may disagree with their methods, but few can imagine the series without them. Their steel-clad figures, their strict codes, and their endless debates over ideology form one of the most consistent threads across the games. The Brotherhood's cultural parallels to real-world knightly orders and secretive societies add to their mystique. Just as medieval knights balanced ideals of honor with the harsh realities of war, the Brotherhood projects noble imagery while engaging in ruthless tactics. Their secrecy echoes groups like the Templars, who guarded sacred treasures and operated behind closed doors. By fusing futuristic technology with these medieval themes, Fallout created a faction that feels both timeless and uniquely suited to its post-apocalyptic world. This blending of old and new reinforces the idea that history repeats itself even after nuclear devastation. Another fascinating aspect of the Brotherhood is how their portrayal invites moral debates among players. Some argue that their strict control of technology prevents another catastrophe, making them a necessary evil. Others believe their hoarding condemns the wasteland to stagnation, keeping vital tools out of the hands of those who need them most. Fallout thrives on these debates, allowing players to project their own philosophies onto the world. Supporting or opposing the Brotherhood is rarely a simple choice. Instead, it is a decision about what kind of future humanity should pursue. Even the Brotherhood's rituals emphasize this blend of idealism and control. Initiates undergo trials to prove their loyalty. Oaths are sworn to uphold the Codex, the central text that outlines their mission and values. Ceremonies mark the transition from initiate to knight, or from knight to paladin, reinforcing a sense of brotherhood and destiny. These rituals bind members together, but they also deepen the faction's cult-like image to outsiders. To wastelanders, the Brotherhood's rites can seem strange, even unsettling, as though technology itself has become their religion. One cannot discuss the Brotherhood without acknowledging Liberty Prime, the towering robot that embodies their technological prowess. In Fallout 3, Liberty Prime was reactivated to combat the Enclave, striding into battle while declaring patriotic slogans. Its sheer size and destructive power made it a symbol of the Brotherhood's triumph. In Fallout 4, its upgraded form unleashed devastation on the Institute, cementing its role as a weapon of ultimate dominance. Liberty Prime demonstrates both the Brotherhood's genius and their hubris. To wield such a weapon is to show unmatched strength, but also to risk repeating the mistakes of the old world by placing too much faith in machines of war. Throughout their history, the Brotherhood has been a mirror reflecting Fallout's central themes: technology as salvation, technology as danger, order as protection, order as oppression, isolation as safety, isolation as weakness. Their contradictions force players to confront uncomfortable truths about humanity's relationship with power. Do we hoard knowledge for fear it will destroy us, or do we share it and risk repeating past mistakes? The Brotherhood insists on one answer, but the Wasteland continues to offer many. The Brotherhood's presence in Appalachia during Fallout 76 further illustrates this pattern of contradictions. Paladin Ramani's push for cooperation clashed with Knight Shin's strict adherence to tradition. Ramani argued that the Brotherhood could not hope to survive without the support of local communities. Shin countered that compromise would dilute their mission and invite chaos. Players were asked to navigate these tensions, choosing whether to steer the chapter toward compassion or rigidity. In doing so, Fallout 76 showed that even centuries after their founding, the Brotherhood still wrestled with the same questions that plagued Roger Maxon at Mariposa: how to balance survival, power, and morality in a broken world. In every iteration, the Brotherhood is defined by struggle against mutants, against rival factions, against scarcity, and above all, against themselves. Their survival is not guaranteed, but their legacy is undeniable. As long as Fallout exists, the Brotherhood of Steel will likely endure, steel-clad guardians of a dream that is equal parts noble and dangerous. They are humanity's protectors, jailers, and historians all at once, and that is what makes them unforgettable. The Brotherhood of Steel is not simply a military order, but a culture shaped by rituals, traditions, and beliefs that have evolved since their founding at Lost Hills. While outsiders often see only armored soldiers and strict commanders, within the Brotherhood's bunkers, a whole way of life has developed. Families live, children are raised, and generations are taught to embrace the codex that guides their mission. This insular culture helps explain why the Brotherhood endures across centuries, even when chapters fall or leaders make disastrous choices. For those born within the Order, the Brotherhood is not just a faction, but the entirety of their identity. The Codex itself is one of the most important aspects of Brotherhood culture. Compiled from the teachings of Roger Maxon and his successors, it outlines their philosophy, chain of command, and relationship to technology. While interpretations of the Codex vary from chapter to chapter, its central tenets remain constant. Technology is both sacred and dangerous. Only the Brotherhood can decide who is worthy to wield it. Discipline, secrecy, and loyalty are paramount. These values shape every decision the Brotherhood makes, from deciding which settlements to aid to determining whether a piece of pre-war tech should be locked away or destroyed. Life inside a Brotherhood bunker reflects these values. Training begins at an early age, with children taught to respect order and honor the mission. Scribes guide the young in study, teaching them not only history and science, but also the dangers of unchecked ambition. Knights and paladins train recruits in the use of weapons and armor, instilling discipline through drills and rituals. Meals are communal, schedules are rigid, and privacy is limited. To outsiders, life inside a Brotherhood stronghold might seem stifling. To members, it is the only life they have ever known, one that gives structure and meaning in a chaotic world. The Brotherhood's secrecy extends beyond their bases to their dealings with outsiders. Their patrols often serve as the only point of contact for wastelanders. These patrols confiscate advanced technology whenever they find it, sometimes at gunpoint. Raiders and mercenaries fear these armored squads, but even ordinary settlers may lose their salvaged equipment if judged too dangerous. This practice feeds resentment, painting the Brotherhood as selfish hoarders rather than protectors. Yet, from their perspective, these confiscations are necessary. Better to strip a town of a plasma rifle than risk it falling into the hands of raiders who could slaughter innocents with it. The Brotherhood's refusal to share knowledge has led to many conflicts with other factions. The New California Republic, with its democratic ideals and belief in progress, often clashes with the Brotherhood's isolationism. In Fallout New Vegas, this tension boiled over into outright war. The NCR sought to control technology to strengthen its republic, while the Brotherhood demanded that all advanced tech remain in their hands. The result was a bloody conflict that left the Mojave chapter weakened and hidden underground. This war remains one of the most striking examples of how the Brotherhood's rigidity prevents cooperation, even with factions that share similar long-term goals. The Brotherhood's relationship with super mutants also reveals their uncompromising nature. In Fallout 3, they waged an endless war against the mutants infesting the capital wasteland. To the Brotherhood, super mutants were abominations created by reckless science, and extermination was the only answer. This crusade consumed enormous resources and manpower, but it also earned them the loyalty of settlers who saw them as defenders. In Fallout 4, Elder Maxon's Brotherhood extended this same philosophy to both mutants and synths, branding them all as existential threats. By refusing to distinguish between hostile and peaceful individuals, the Brotherhood revealed the dangers of its absolutism. And yet, the Brotherhood is not without compassion. Elder Lyon's decision to prioritize human lives over technological hoarding demonstrated that even within this rigid faction, leaders can shift its direction. Lyon's Brotherhood brought clean water to the capital wasteland, defended settlements, and welcomed outsiders who proved themselves. While purists saw this as betrayal, many settlers saw it as salvation. This duality demonstrates that the Brotherhood is not defined solely by its dogma, but also by the choices of its leaders. A compassionate elder can transform the faction into a force for good, while a harsh one can make it tyrannical. Elder Arthur Maxon represents the other side of this spectrum. In Fallout 4, his leadership brought a return to traditionalism. Descended from Roger Maxon himself, Arthur embodied the Brotherhood's martial zeal and distrust of outsiders. Under his command, the Brotherhood deployed the Pridwen, reasserting their dominance with overwhelming force. His charisma and lineage made him a symbol of unity, but his uncompromising stance against synths, mutants, and even rival factions made him divisive. To some, he was the savior the Brotherhood needed. To others, he represented a dangerous step toward authoritarianism. The Brotherhood's rituals of promotion and initiation further illustrate their culture. When an initiate proves their loyalty, they are elevated to knight, granted the right to wear the Brotherhood's armor and maintain its machines. Paladins, chosen for their bravery and discipline, are tasked with leading missions and defending the Order's interests in the field. Scribes, though less celebrated, are revered for their role in preserving knowledge. These roles create a balance between warriors and scholars, mirroring the Brotherhood's dual obsession with battle and knowledge. Together, they form a self-sustaining society, each role reinforcing the others. Technology confiscated by the Brotherhood is often stored in vast armories or hidden archives. Energy weapons, mini nukes, and prototype schematics are all carefully cataloged, sometimes never to see use again. In Fallout 3, the Outcasts made clear that this hoarding was their highest priority, rejecting any mission that involved helping settlers. In Fallout 4, Elder Maxon's armories brimmed with advanced weaponry, demonstrating the fruits of their scavenging. This practice raises one of the central questions that makes the Brotherhood so compelling. Is technology safer locked away, or should it be shared to rebuild the world? The Brotherhood's long history of splintering into factions proves that even their strict code cannot prevent dissent. The Outcasts, the Mojave chapter's internal struggle, and the debates in Appalachia all show that ideology alone cannot unite them forever. Each new region reshapes the Brotherhood into something slightly different, molded by necessity and leadership. This diversity makes them endlessly fascinating because while the Brotherhood name and emblem remain constant, their behavior varies widely. One player may encounter them as noble allies, while another sees them as ruthless enemies. The Brotherhood's cultural impact on players mirrors their impact in the games. Fans debate endlessly whether the Brotherhood are heroes or villains. Some see them as the only faction capable of maintaining order in a shattered world. Others argue that their arrogance makes them no better than the enemies they fight. This debate reflects the very tension that Fallout seeks to explore. Technology is not inherently good or bad. It is how humanity wields it that determines its fate. The Brotherhood insists on control, but the series continually asks whether that control is just or self-serving. The Brotherhood's technology fetishism sometimes borders on religious zeal. In Fallout lore, members refer to their mission in near spiritual terms, describing technology as both sacred and dangerous. Their reverence for machines is akin to worship, and their rituals of preservation echo religious ceremonies. This quasi-religious quality helps explain why they inspire both loyalty and fear. To their members, the Brotherhood offers certainty in a world of chaos. To outsiders, it looks like fanaticism. This duality is part of what makes them so iconic. They embody both reason and zeal, science and faith, wrapped in steel. Even within their contradictions, the Brotherhood of Steel has endured for centuries. Their survival is not accidental. By creating a culture that is both militaristic and scholarly, insular and expansionist, rigid and adaptable, they ensured that their legacy would outlast any single elder. From the deserts of California to the ruins of Boston and the mountains of Appalachia, the Brotherhood continues to march in their steel armor, swords and gears emblazoned on their chests, convinced that only they can shepherd humanity's future. Whether they are right or wrong remains the question that keeps players fascinated every time they encounter them. The Brotherhood of Steel has left a profound mark on every major Fallout game, and part of what keeps them compelling is the sheer variety of ways they have been portrayed. Unlike the Enclave, who are consistently authoritarian, or Raiders, who are consistently chaotic, the Brotherhood shifts depending on leadership, geography, and circumstance. This adaptability makes them more human and more flawed, allowing them to reflect both the best and worst of humanity. The original chapter at Lost Hills provides the foundation for their culture. In the early days, the Brotherhood's leadership crafted the Codex to formalize their beliefs. The Codex was not a sacred scripture in the traditional sense, but a living document meant to provide consistency across generations. It defined the roles of scribes, knights, and paladins, emphasizing discipline, secrecy, and the preservation of technology. Though the Codex was meant to unify the Brotherhood, its interpretations became one of the main reasons factions splintered. Chapters disagreed on whether the Codex demanded absolute isolation or allowed for humanitarian intervention. These disagreements shaped the Brotherhood's many faces across the wasteland. Fallout 1 introduced the Brotherhood to players as a mysterious and powerful order in the West. Their headquarters at Lost Hills stood as a fortress of steel and secrecy, accessible only to those willing to prove themselves. Players who ventured there found themselves tested, forced to demonstrate worth before being allowed inside. Within, the halls of Lost Hills buzzed with armored soldiers, meticulous scribes, and the faint hum of preserved technology. The Brotherhood's presence in Fallout 1 was not as central as in later games, but their aura of mystery set the tone for every future appearance. Fallout 2 revealed how limited their influence could be. By this time, the Brotherhood had receded in importance compared to factions like the New California Republic and the Enclave. They still scouted the world and monitored technology, but they no longer appeared to be the dominant force some wastelanders believed them to be. This decline reflected a recurring pattern in the Brotherhood's story, waxing and waning influence depending on leadership and circumstance. It also hinted at their vulnerability, showing that their steel-clad image could hide deeper fragility. Their return to prominence in Fallout 3 marked a turning point. Elder Lyons, leading the Capital Wasteland chapter, reinterpreted the Codex in a way that prioritized protecting human life over hoarding technology. His brotherhood battled the super mutants that plagued Washington, D.C., and worked to bring clean water to the wasteland through Project Purity. To many settlers, Lyons' Brotherhood was the first time the Order lived up to its image as protectors, but this altruism caused fractures within their ranks. Members who clung to the original doctrine split off to form the Outcasts, who rejected Lyons' vision and returned to strict technological isolationism. This division underscored the faction's ongoing struggle between tradition and adaptation. The Outcasts themselves became a symbol of how ideology can divide even the most disciplined orders. Dressed in red and black armor, they patrolled the wasteland with a cold focus, ignoring the suffering of settlers in favor of gathering advanced weaponry. To them, Lyons had betrayed the Brotherhood's mission, and only by rejecting his reforms could they remain true to the Codex. Players encountering the Outcasts often found them hostile or dismissive, willing to trade or interact only if it benefited their scavenging. Their presence made the Capital Wasteland feel more complex, as if the Brotherhood itself was not a single entity, but a fractured order constantly debating its identity. Fallout New Vegas offered another perspective. The Mojave chapter, led by Elder McNamara, was a shadow of its former self. After clashing with the New California Republic, they were forced into hiding at Hidden Valley. Their numbers dwindled, their morale weakened, and their future uncertain. The player, as the courier, could influence their fate, either helping them emerge stronger or ensuring their decline. This portrayal emphasized the Brotherhood's vulnerability. Even clad in power armor, they were not invincible. Without allies and resources, they could wither away like any other group. The Mojave chapter's struggles mirrored real-world themes of dogmatic institutions, refusing to adapt and suffering the consequences. In Fallout 4, the Brotherhood returned as a conquering force. Elder Arthur Maxson commanded the chapter with authoritarian zeal, arriving in Boston aboard the Prydwen airship. This Brotherhood rejected Lyons' compassion and embraced a militant, uncompromising philosophy. To them, the Institute represented an existential threat, not just because of its synths, but because it symbolized uncontrolled science, repeating the mistakes of the old world. Maxson's Brotherhood demanded loyalty, exterminated perceived abominations, and claimed to be the only faction capable of ensuring survival. To some players, this version of the Brotherhood was a welcome return to their roots. To others, it showed their descent into tyranny. The Commonwealth provided the perfect stage for these contradictions. On one hand, the Brotherhood saved settlements from raiders and mutants, offering strength and protection. On the other hand, their rigid policies led them to target even peaceful synths and groups who did not align with their mission. This duality made every interaction with them charged with moral weight. Choosing to side with Maxson's Brotherhood meant embracing discipline and power, but at the cost of freedom and diversity. Opposing them meant risking the wrath of one of the most powerful military forces in the wasteland. Liberty Prime further cemented their image of overwhelming might. First activated in Fallout 3 and rebuilt in Fallout 4, This towering robot became the Brotherhood's ultimate weapon. Its patriotic quips and devastating arsenal symbolized the fusion of military technology and propaganda. Liberty Prime was not just a machine of war, but a cultural statement. The Brotherhood alone had the capacity to reclaim and wield such relics of the old world. Its presence in battle underscored their philosophy that power, when tightly controlled, could safeguard humanity. But it also raised the question of whether relying on such destructive technology risked repeating the very mistakes that led to the Great War. Fallout 76 expanded the Brotherhood's lore by introducing the Appalachian chapter. Through the Steel Dawn and Steel Rain storylines, players saw how the faction attempted to establish itself in a new region. Paladin Layla Romani represented a reformist vision seeking cooperation with local communities. Knight Daniel Shin embodied traditionalism, insisting on rigid adherence to the Codex. Their conflict mirrored the same ideological debates seen in Lyons' Capital Wasteland chapter and McNamara's Mojave chapter. It showed that no matter where the Brotherhood went, they could not escape their internal struggle over identity and purpose. The Appalachian storyline also highlighted the Brotherhood's attempts to balance survival with morality. Appalachia was a region ravaged not just by raiders or mutants, but by the Scorched, a plague that turned people into hive-minded horrors. The Brotherhood's arrival promised stability, but their debates over how to handle the threat revealed the same old divides. Should they focus on protecting people, as Ramani argued, or should they focus solely on hoarding resources, as Shin preferred? This narrative reinforced the idea that the Brotherhood's greatest battles are often internal rather than external. The Brotherhood's reliance on vertibirds in later games also underscored their technological superiority. These aircraft, once part of the pre-war military, became symbols of their dominance. Few factions could rival their ability to patrol from the skies, transport troops quickly, or project force over large regions. In Fallout 4, vertibirds buzzing over the Commonwealth signaled the Brotherhood's overwhelming presence. To Wastelanders, seeing those machines was both reassuring and terrifying, depending on whether they viewed the Brotherhood as saviors or oppressors. Beyond weapons and machines, the Brotherhood's culture of secrecy is one of its defining traits. Access to knowledge is tightly controlled, with only scribes and elders privy to the most sensitive information. Lower-ranking members are often kept in the dark, expected to obey orders without question. This secrecy is part of what gives the Brotherhood its mystique, but also fuels paranoia. Outsiders often interpret this as arrogance, while insiders see it as protection. The result is a faction that projects unity to the world, but is constantly roiling with hidden debates and fractures beneath the surface. The Brotherhood's recurring conflicts with the Enclave highlight their role as both mirrors and opposites. Both factions see themselves as the rightful heirs of humanity's legacy. Both hoard advanced technology and enforce rigid hierarchies. The difference lies in how they justify their actions. The Enclave seeks to dominate and control, claiming legitimacy as the remnants of the United States government. The Brotherhood claims to protect, framing their control as stewardship. Yet when compared side by side, the similarities can be striking, and Fallout often invites players to question whether the Brotherhood is truly different from the enemies they oppose. Despite all their flaws, the Brotherhood remains captivating because they embody humanity's complicated relationship with knowledge and power. They are not content to be just another raider gang or opportunistic faction. They represent a philosophy, one that resonates because it reflects real-world debates. Should knowledge be restricted to prevent disaster, or should it be shared to encourage growth? Should security come before freedom, or does freedom make security possible? The Brotherhood insists on its answers, but Fallout leaves the final judgment in the hands of the player. The Brotherhood of Steel's legacy is not only defined by its leadership or technology, but also by its interactions with ordinary people across the wasteland. For settlers, traders, and scavengers, the Brotherhood can appear as both saviors and tyrants. These differing perceptions highlight how much of their identity is shaped by perspective. A farmer protected from raider attacks may praise them as heroes, while a scavenger, stripped of valuable equipment, may curse them as thieves. This duality is one of the reasons why they remain such a fascinating faction, because their morality shifts depending on where you stand. One of the clearest examples of this complexity comes from Fallout 3's Project Purity. The Brotherhood under Elder Lyons fought to secure and activate the massive water purifier on the banks of the Potomac River, battling both super mutants and the Enclave. To Wastelanders, the purifier represented salvation, a source of clean water in a region where thirst often meant death. To the Brotherhood, it also symbolized a chance to demonstrate their ability to protect and rebuild. Yet even here, the story was not simple. Lyon's willingness to work for the good of all clashed with Outcast doctrine, which saw the purifier as just another piece of technology to be controlled rather than shared. What Wastelanders experienced as generosity, the Outcasts saw as weakness. The Mojave Wasteland provides another lens. In Fallout New Vegas, the Brotherhood chapter there had been nearly destroyed after its war with the new California Republic. For survivors hiding in Hidden Valley, the NCR was not an ally, but an enemy. Outsiders might view the Brotherhood's retreat as proof of their arrogance, a faction unable to compromise that had nearly doomed itself. But for those inside the bunkers, it was framed as loyalty to tradition and refusal to bow to a rival. To them, survival in secrecy was preferable to diluting their mission by making concessions. This insularity was a choice that defined their relationship to the wider Mojave, even as it left them isolated. Fallout 4 once again flipped the script. Under Elder Maxon, the Brotherhood arrived in the Commonwealth as conquerors, demanding recognition of their authority. Settlers could see them as protectors against raiders and mutants, but they also witnessed their harsh policies towards synths and their disdain for rival groups like the Railroad. For many Wastelanders, the arrival of the Pride One was awe-inspiring, but it also came with fear. Would the Brotherhood save them, or would they decide that their way of life was unworthy? The ambiguity of their presence made every interaction fraught with tension. This tension is rooted in the Brotherhood's fundamental belief that only they can decide the future of technology. To them, Wastelanders cannot be trusted with advanced weapons, reactors, or even medical devices, because history has already proven humanity's recklessness. This belief explains why they strip settlements of energy rifles or confiscate experimental devices. From their perspective, they are preventing another catastrophe. From the perspective of settlers, they are stripping away the very tools that might allow communities to defend themselves. This clash of views has fueled resentment, but it also keeps the Brotherhood consistent across regions. No matter where they appear, they insist on control. The Brotherhood's discipline also sets them apart. While raiders and mercenaries thrive on chaos, the Brotherhood enforces strict order within its ranks. Every member has a role, from initiates training in drills, to scribes poring over data, to paladins patrolling the ruins. This military structure creates efficiency and unity, but it also fosters rigidity. When circumstances demand flexibility, the Brotherhood often struggles to adapt. Fallout repeatedly demonstrates this flaw, showing chapters that falter because they cling too tightly to the Codex rather than adjusting to the unique conditions of their environment. The Mojave chapter's decline is perhaps the most striking example of this inflexibility, and yet, despite these flaws, the Brotherhood inspires loyalty among its members. This loyalty is not only born of indoctrination, but also of identity. For those raised within its bunkers, the Brotherhood is family. Its rituals, its traditions, and its shared mission provide stability in a world of chaos. Members believe they are chosen guardians, entrusted with a sacred duty. Even when chapters split, as with the outcasts or the ideological divide in Appalachia, that loyalty remains. Members may disagree over interpretation, but rarely do they abandon the core mission of preserving and controlling technology. The Brotherhood's symbolic resonance extends far beyond the Fallout world itself. Players often gravitate toward them because they embody archetypes that are universally compelling. The knight in shining armor, the secretive order guarding sacred relics, the authoritarian force demanding obedience, all of these archetypes are woven into the Brotherhood's design. By combining futuristic technology with medieval symbolism, Fallout created a faction that feels both ancient and modern, both mythic and futuristic. This blending is why a single glimpse of power armor is enough for players to immediately recognize the Brotherhood. Their emphasis on hierarchy ensures that the Brotherhood is as much about ritual as it is about practicality. Knights and paladins are not simply military ranks, but symbols of their devotion to the mission. Scribes are not just scientists, but guardians of sacred knowledge. Elders are not only leaders, but interpreters of the Codex, treated with reverence and often obeyed without question. These titles transform the Brotherhood into more than a military force. They are an order, one that carries itself with the weight of destiny. Fallout 76 expanded on this theme by showing the Brotherhood as they struggled to establish themselves in Appalachia. Paladin Rahmani's willingness to cooperate with locals contrasted sharply with Knight Shin's strict adherence to the Codex. This conflict mirrored debates seen in earlier games, but it also made the Brotherhood more relatable. Players could see their leaders as individuals grappling with difficult choices, not just faceless enforcers of doctrine. By humanizing these internal struggles, Fallout 76 reminded players that the Brotherhood is not monolithic. It is a collection of people, each bringing their own interpretation to the mission. The Brotherhood's ongoing debate over identity raises an important question. What does it mean to truly protect humanity? For Lions, it meant sharing resources like clean water, even if it contradicted tradition. For Maxon, it meant exterminating threats and maintaining strict control, even if it meant alienating allies. For Ramani, it meant cooperation. For Shin, it meant discipline above all else. These competing visions show that the Brotherhood's core philosophy is less a single doctrine and more a spectrum of beliefs. Depending on leadership, the same faction can appear benevolent or tyrannical, cooperative or oppressive. Despite these differences, one constant remains: the Brotherhood's survival instinct. Even in times of near collapse, chapters cling to their mission. Hidden Valley in the Mojave, outcast patrols in the Capital Wasteland, and cautious negotiations in Appalachia all demonstrate how far they will go to endure. Survival is not only about technology, but about maintaining identity. They believe they are humanity's last line of defense against repeating the mistakes of the past, and this conviction drives them to persist even when their numbers dwindle or their ideology divides them. The Brotherhood of Steel is ultimately a reflection of Fallout's greatest theme, the struggle between past and future. They embody the tension between remembering the old world and creating a new one. By clinging to technology, they ensure that humanity does not lose its heritage, but by hoarding it, they risk preventing progress. This paradox is why they are both respected and reviled. To some, they are the keepers of humanity's future. To others, they are the jailers of its potential. Fallout never resolves this debate, leaving it to the player to decide whether the Brotherhood's mission is noble or misguided. The Brotherhood of Steel stands apart from nearly every other faction in Fallout because they embody humanity's conflicting relationship with technology. Unlike the Enclave, who seek to dominate with it, or the followers of the Apocalypse, who share it freely, the Brotherhood insists that only they have the right to decide how knowledge and machines should be handled. This self-appointed guardianship defines their story in every region. It is what makes them compelling, divisive, and ever-present in debates about the future of the wasteland. The group's obsession with technology preservation comes directly from their founding at Mariposa. Roger Maxson and his soldiers witnessed firsthand how reckless experiments with the forced evolutionary virus could twist men into monsters. For Maxson, this proved that humanity could not be trusted with unchecked science. He created the Brotherhood to prevent such horrors from ever happening again. Over the centuries, this founding trauma hardened into doctrine. Members are taught from birth that the misuse of technology nearly destroyed the world once and could easily do so again. This mindset explains their often ruthless policies toward confiscation and hoarding. To them, it is not cruelty but protection. Yet the Brotherhood's strictness often blinds them to nuance. In Fallout 3, the Outcasts refused to help with Project Purity because it fell outside their strict interpretation of the mission. To them, wasting resources on humanitarian projects diluted the Codex. They ignored the suffering of thousands because their philosophy demanded focus only on technology. By contrast, Elder Lyons believed that protecting people was just as important as guarding machines. His reformist approach demonstrated that even within the Brotherhood, compassion could coexist with discipline. But it also showed how easily the order could fracture when leadership strayed from rigid tradition. Fallout New Vegas carried this theme further by portraying the Mojave chapter in decline. Elder McNamara clung to caution, believing secrecy was the only way to preserve the order. Paladin Hardin pressed for aggression, convinced that only a show of force could restore their relevance. The Courier's involvement highlighted how fragile their unity was. A single decision could push the Brotherhood toward recovery or doom. This portrayal reminded players that the Brotherhood is not invulnerable. Even their shining armor and strict codes cannot shield them from the consequences of poor leadership or stubborn ideology. Fallout 4 escalated the Brotherhood's presence to new heights. With Elder Arthur Maxson, his lineage gave him authority, and his charisma inspired loyalty. Under his rule, the Brotherhood stormed into the Commonwealth aboard the Pridwin, overwhelming the region with airships, vertibirds, and disciplined soldiers. To settlers, their arrival was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Maxson's Brotherhood was uncompromising, declaring mutants and synths as abominations to be eradicated. This stance created sharp divides. Some admired their willingness to fight existential threats with unmatched firepower. Others saw them as tyrants whose obsession with purity justified cruelty. The Brotherhood's presence in Boston reminded everyone that strength can be as frightening as it is comforting. The Pridwin itself became a cultural symbol within the game. More than just a base, it projected the Brotherhood's dominance across the skies. Few other factions could claim such technological might. Its deck bustled with knights and scribes, its hangars filled with vertibirds, its forges maintaining power armor suits. It was both fortress and propaganda, a constant reminder that the Brotherhood had returned to reclaim the old world's legacy. To wastelanders gazing upward, it proved that the Brotherhood was not just another militia, but a force with resources rivaling pre-war militaries. But this reliance on advanced machines revealed their vulnerability. Every vertibird needed rare parts. Every suit of power armor required constant repair. Every laser rifle needed cells that could not easily be manufactured. The Brotherhood's dependence on this arsenal meant that their survival hinged on their ability to secure resources. This explains their endless scavenging missions and their aggressive seizures of technology from others. Without this steady flow, their empire of steel would rust and collapse. This dependency makes them formidable, but also precarious, always a few shortages away from decline. The Appalachian chapter in Fallout 76 illustrated this precariousness. Paladin Ramani and Knight Shin embodied two poles of Brotherhood ideology. Ramani argued that alliances with settlers were necessary for survival. Shin countered that compromise threatened the Order's purity. Their debates echoed earlier conflicts, proving that the same questions haunted every chapter. Should the Brotherhood cling to isolation or adapt to a world that demands cooperation? Appalachia's story showed that even after centuries, the Brotherhood's internal divisions had not disappeared. They remained a faction, forever debating its purpose. Pulled between compassion and dogma, Liberty Prime served as another lens into their contradictions. Originally designed as a propaganda tool before the war, the Brotherhood rebuilt and weaponized it in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. To the Wasteland, Liberty Prime was both marvel and terror. It crushed enemies underfoot while shouting patriotic slogans, a bizarre fusion of absurdity and destruction. For the Brotherhood, it represented triumph, proof that they alone could reclaim and control the greatest relics of the past. But it also symbolized their arrogance, wielding a weapon of mass destruction while claiming to prevent humanity from repeating its mistakes. Liberty Prime encapsulated the paradox of the Brotherhood, protectors who become dangerous through their own power. Their recurring conflict with the Enclave highlights this paradox further. The Enclave claimed legitimacy as the remnants of the United States government, hoarding technology to restore their vision of America. The Brotherhood opposed them fiercely, yet the two factions often mirrored each other. Both were secretive, hierarchical, and obsessed with control. The key difference lay in their justifications. The Enclave sought domination, while the Brotherhood framed their control as stewardship. To outsiders, the distinction could feel meaningless. Both factions demanded obedience, both hoarded resources, and both wielded devastating weapons. Fallout often used this similarity to force players to question whether the Brotherhood was truly better than the enemies they fought. The Brotherhood's visual identity reinforces their dual role as guardians and oppressors. Their power armor, emblazoned with the sword and gear insignia, communicates strength and order. To Wastelanders, it is an image of both protection and intimidation. Soldiers clad in steel helmets with glowing visors are not approachable neighbors, but armored giants. This aesthetic ensures that the Brotherhood always feels larger than life, whether they are allies or adversaries. It also contributes to their mystique outside the games, making them one of the most iconic designs in video game history. The Brotherhood's cultural resonance with players comes from these layers of complexity. They are not raiders to be dismissed, nor governments to be easily trusted. They are an order grappling with questions of morality, survival, and destiny. Every encounter with them invites debate. Should technology be hoarded or shared? Should strength be used to protect or dominate? Should ideology be flexible or absolute? By presenting these questions without simple answers, Fallout ensures that the Brotherhood remains endlessly fascinating. Perhaps what makes the Brotherhood endure most of all is their adaptability across games. They have been mysterious guardians in Fallout 1, diminished observers in Fallout 2, central allies in Fallout 3, weakened hermits in New Vegas, conquering zealots in Fallout 4, and conflicted reformists in Fallout 76. Each portrayal reflects different facets of the same philosophy, ensuring they never feel static. This adaptability mirrors history itself, where institutions evolve, fracture, and reform across centuries. The Brotherhood may change faces, but their steel-clad mission always remains. The Brotherhood of Steel has always existed at the intersection of hope and fear. They inspire admiration for their discipline and strength, yet they provoke unease through their secrecy and authoritarianism. This duality is central to their legacy, because in every corner of the wasteland, people tell stories of Brotherhood patrols descending from the skies, confiscating relics, and marching on in silent determination. To some, these stories prove that the Order is humanity's last line of defense against extinction. To others, they are a reminder that oppression can wear the face of protection. One of the most remarkable qualities of the Brotherhood is their ability to rebuild themselves from near destruction. Time and again, chapters have been wiped out, only to rise again in new forms. The Mojave chapter nearly vanished after the events of Fallout New Vegas, yet rumors persist of remnants continuing their work in secret. The Appalachian chapter was all but forgotten until Fallout 76 reintroduced them through storylines that proved their resilience. Even the Capital Wasteland chapter, which seemed fractured between outcasts and reformists, managed to endure long enough to be reforged under Arthur Maxson's leadership. This persistence ensures that no matter how many times the Brotherhood falters, they are never truly erased. Their presence also forces every community to define its relationship with technology. In Boston, settlers marveled at the sight of the Prydwen, but also feared what its cannons might do to their homes. In the Mojave, prospectors weighed whether to share or hide valuable discoveries, knowing the Brotherhood might appear to seize them. In Appalachia, farmers and merchants wondered if cooperating with Ramani's reformist approach would bring security or invite further conflict. These dilemmas show that the Brotherhood is not just a military faction, but a mirror held up to every society they encounter, asking the question of who should wield power in a broken world. Internally, the Brotherhood is defined by its ranks and rituals. Initiates enter as hopeful recruits, often subjected to trials meant to test loyalty and discipline. Scribes dedicate their lives to research, preservation, and the meticulous cataloging of every machine or record salvaged from the old world. Knights form the fighting backbone, donning armor and wielding weapons to enforce the Order's will. Paladins rise above them, veterans trusted with leadership in battle and decision-making. At the top sit the elders, figures treated with reverence akin to monarchs, guiding chapters with interpretations of the Codex. This hierarchy reinforces their identity as a structured, almost monastic order, where every role serves the greater mission of safeguarding technology. But this rigid structure also creates friction. Knights sometimes chafe at the restrictions imposed by scribes. Paladins question elders who seem too cautious or too bold. In Fallout 3, the outcasts proved how far such disagreements could go, with entire divisions breaking away rather than compromise their interpretation of doctrine. These tensions make the Brotherhood feel alive, not as a static machine, but as a human institution vulnerable to pride, ambition, and stubbornness. Players witnessing these conflicts gain insight into how ideology is never monolithic. Even the Brotherhood's shining steel contains cracks. The Brotherhood's relationship with other factions is one of the richest threads in Fallout's storytelling. Their rivalry with the Enclave is legendary, with battles fought over advanced weaponry and ideals about humanity's future. Yet their interactions with more humble groups are equally revealing. The NCR in Fallout New Vegas viewed them as dangerous isolationists who could not be trusted with power. The Institute in Fallout 4 saw them as rivals in shaping the destiny of the Commonwealth. Each faction convinced it alone had the right to guide progress. Even the Minutemen, champions of community defense, found themselves overshadowed by the Brotherhood's sheer scale. Each of these rivalries reflects the same underlying theme: the struggle between control, freedom, and responsibility in a world where every choice carries consequences. The Brotherhood's philosophy about purity often extends beyond technology. Many of their leaders express disdain for ghouls, supermutants, and synths, seeing them as aberrations that threaten humanity's survival. This intolerance is especially pronounced under Arthur Maxson in Fallout 4, where his speeches denounce such beings as abominations. To him, allowing their existence risks repeating the mistakes of the past. Yet this view reveals the Order's narrowness, because it dismisses the humanity still present in ghouls, or the potential sentience of synths. Fallout uses these conflicts to explore prejudice and fear, showing how even a faction dedicated to preservation can perpetuate destruction when blinded by ideology. At the same time, individual Brotherhood members sometimes challenge these rigid stances. Characters like Veronica Santangelo in Fallout New Vegas expressed disillusionment with the Order's conservatism. As a scribe, she dreamed of using technology to improve lives rather than hoard it, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. Her story highlighted how compassion and progress often clash with tradition inside the Brotherhood. Similarly, in Fallout 76, Ramani represented a vision of a Brotherhood willing to work with settlers instead of lording over them. These dissenting voices suggest that the Order is not beyond redemption. Change, however slow, can emerge from within. The Brotherhood's iconography plays a powerful role in how they are remembered. Their emblem, a sword over gears and wings, encapsulates their dual focus on war and technology. It adorns banners, armor, and terminals, a constant reminder of their creed. Their power armor, particularly the T-Series suits, has become synonymous with Fallout itself, appearing on box art, promotional posters, and merchandise. This imagery reinforces their mythic stature. Even players who dislike their ideology cannot deny the allure of walking through the wasteland encased in Brotherhood steel, embodying the fantasy of indomitable survival. Technology they preserve is not limited to weapons and armor. The Brotherhood often scavenges medical equipment, archives of pre-war knowledge, and even agricultural tools. Yet their distribution of these resources is selective. They decide who deserves access, often prioritizing their own survival over the needs of civilians. This selectiveness generates resentment among wastelanders, who see the Brotherhood as hoarders rather than saviors. Fallout consistently returns to this theme. Is hoarding better than sharing if it ensures long-term survival, or does selfishness doom humanity to repeat the cycle of destruction? These questions linger long after each encounter with the Brotherhood ends. Even their victories carry complications. In Fallout 3, their triumph over the Enclave secured Project Purity, but at great cost, splitting the Order and alienating the outcasts. In Fallout 4, their dominance over the Commonwealth left behind a landscape of fear and hostility, with entire communities destroyed in their war against synths. In Fallout 76, their internal disputes threatened to unravel the fragile alliances Romani tried to build. The pattern is clear. The Brotherhood may achieve success, but the price is often high. These costs remind players that strength alone cannot guarantee a just future. Outside the games, the Brotherhood's influence extends into the broader culture of Fallout. Fans debate endlessly whether they are heroes or villains, protectors or tyrants. Cosplayers don suits of armor at conventions, while artists create depictions of vertibirds soaring over ruined cities. The faction's complexity ensures that they remain one of the most discussed and recognized elements of the franchise. Even newcomers who know little of Fallout often recognize the Brotherhood through their armor and insignia, a testament to how deeply they have become embedded in gaming culture. In the end, the Brotherhood of Steel represents more than a faction. They embody humanity's struggle to reconcile the wonders of technology with the dangers of misuse. They are monks guarding relics, soldiers marching into battle, and zealots clinging to dogma. They are saviors and oppressors, protectors and destroyers, often in the same breath. This contradiction is what makes them timeless. As long as Fallout exists, the Brotherhood will endure because their questions are our questions. Who decides what knowledge should be preserved? Who decides how it should be used? And who bears the cost when those decisions go wrong? The Brotherhood of Steel has survived for more than 2 centuries, not because of its unyielding dogma alone, but because of its ability to adapt while still clinging to the appearance of certainty. Their origins stretch back to Roger Maxson, the former United States Army officer who rejected the government's horrific experiments at Mariposa. When he gathered his soldiers and their families in the desert and forged a new identity, he could not have known that his fledgling order would become one of the most powerful and recognizable forces in the post-nuclear world. Every chapter since has claimed to follow his legacy, but the way they interpret it has varied so drastically that sometimes it is difficult to see the common thread. This tension between heritage and reinvention is at the heart of the Brotherhood's enduring influence. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Order is the way each chapter reflects its environment. In the Capital Wasteland, the Brotherhood grew more compassionate under Elder Lyons, shifting from hoarding to defending citizens. That version of the Brotherhood became almost heroic, though it fractured the Order by alienating the outcasts. In the Commonwealth, Arthur Maxson steered the Order back towards strict orthodoxy, unleashing campaigns against ghouls, mutants, and synths in the name of purity. In the Mojave, Elder McNamara struggled to preserve his people by hiding them away, while rival Elder Hardin sought to return them to open conflict. In Appalachia, Paladin Romani dreamed of cooperation, while Knight Shin embodied old discipline. These differences prove that the Brotherhood is not one voice, but many, each one filtered through circumstance, leadership, and survival. Their obsession with technology remains their most defining trait. The Brotherhood views every circuit, engine, and archive of pre-war science as a sacred relic, more valuable than any gold or gem. In their eyes, these machines are humanity's inheritance, and they alone have the wisdom to decide how they should be used. That sense of ownership drives their campaigns of confiscation, as seen when patrols sweep through towns demanding the surrender of energy weapons or prototypes. To outsiders, this behavior seems tyrannical. To the Brotherhood, it is stewardship, preventing dangerous tools from falling into untrained hands. Fallout repeatedly asks the player to consider whether that justification holds weight or whether it is an excuse for domination. Their philosophy has shaped not only their actions, but also their rituals. The Brotherhood Codex acts as both a constitution and a scripture, prescribing the values of loyalty, discipline, and reverence for technology. Recruits undergo initiation ceremonies, where they pledge themselves to the order above all else. Knights are awarded their armor, not simply as equipment, but as a symbol of trust. Scribes record every discovery, treating even mundane items as treasures worthy of preservation. Paladins take vows that bind them to their superiors with near religious devotion. These customs create a sense of unity, but they also encourage conformity, making dissent difficult. Those who question the Codex risk exile, or worse, as Veronica's struggles in the Mojave or the Outcasts in Washington, D.C. illustrate. The Brotherhood's connection to power armor is perhaps its most iconic feature. From the hulking T-45 suits of the early post-war era to the sleeker T-60 designs fielded by Maxon's forces, these walking tanks symbolize everything the Brotherhood represents. They are relics of the old world, weaponized for the new one, intimidating to behold and devastating in battle. The sight of a squad of armored knights descending from a vertibird is one of Fallout's most memorable images, seared into the minds of wastelanders and players alike. Yet the suits are more than just tools. To the Brotherhood, they are symbols of legitimacy, proof that they are the rightful heirs to pre-war might. Wearing one is as much about identity as survival. Another pillar of the Brotherhood's culture is secrecy. The Order guards its knowledge jealously, refusing to share schematics or technology with outsiders unless forced. Even allies are kept at arm's length. Settlements that beg for aid may receive weapons in emergencies, but rarely receive the knowledge to reproduce them. This secrecy ensures control, but it also stifles broader recovery. Fallout explores this paradox by showing how societies like the NCR or Diamond City try to rebuild with limited resources, while the Brotherhood withholds the very tools that could accelerate progress. The player is often caught in the middle of this dilemma, forced to decide whether hoarding or sharing is the path to survival. Despite their flaws, the Brotherhood endures because they represent stability in a world defined by chaos. To frightened settlers, their vertibirds and banners are reminders that some force still possesses order, discipline, and firepower. To ambitious wastelanders, their vaults of technology offer the promise of advancement. To enemies, they are a looming threat that cannot be ignored. Their very presence reshapes the balance of power wherever they go, ensuring that no region can remain untouched once they arrive. This influence makes them one of Fallout's most versatile storytelling tools, able to serve as allies, villains, or something uncomfortably in between. Their conflicts with other factions highlight their contradictions. With the Enclave, they clash over the right to claim the mantle of America's future. With the NCR, they wage wars of attrition over technology and ideology. With the Institute, they fight over control of synthetic life With raiders and mutants, they stand as bulwarks of civilization while also refusing to aid those they protect. Each of these relationships reveals a facet of their identity, reinforcing the theme that the Brotherhood is never simple. They are protectors when it suits them, conquerors when it does not, and always convinced of their own righteousness. The Brotherhood's leaders have become legends in their own right. Roger Maxon is remembered as the founder who gave them purpose. John Maxon carried forward his legacy, steering the Order through its early decades. Sarah Lyons became a hero to the Capital Wasteland, inspiring loyalty with her compassion and courage. Arthur Maxon, her successor, embodied the return to strict doctrine, transforming the Brotherhood into a war machine that dominated Boston. Each leader shaped the Order in profound ways, proving how much of their identity depends on those at the helm. The question of leadership remains one of the Brotherhood's most compelling mysteries, because each new elder has the potential to reshape them entirely. Beyond the games, the Brotherhood has captured the imagination of Fallout's fan base. Their imagery dominates posters, cosplays, and merchandise. Their philosophy sparks endless debate online, with players arguing over whether they are justified protectors or hypocritical tyrants. Their power armor suits appear in fan art and even real-world replicas, while their vertibirds inspire models and dioramas. The Amazon television series further cemented their place in pop culture, presenting them as both awe-inspiring and unnerving to audiences unfamiliar with the games. The fact that they remain central to every depiction of Fallout, no matter the medium, shows how deeply they embody the franchise's identity. What makes the Brotherhood timeless is not their victories or defeats, but the questions they raise. Should knowledge be shared freely, even if it risks disaster? Should survival be prioritized over compassion? Should humanity cling to the past or build something new? These are not just Fallout questions, but human ones, which is why the Brotherhood resonates so strongly. Players are invited to wrestle with these dilemmas every time they encounter the Order, and the answers they choose reveal as much about themselves as about the wasteland. In the end, the Brotherhood of Steel is both cautionary tale and enduring symbol. They remind us of the dangers of zealotry, the costs of secrecy, and the weight of authority, but they also embody resilience, determination, and the unshakable belief that humanity can endure even after catastrophe. They are flawed, often cruel, sometimes noble, and always unforgettable. As long as Fallout stories are told, their banners will fly, their vertibirds will soar, and their armor will march across the ruins of the old world. The wasteland may change, but the Brotherhood of Steel will always be there, a reminder that even in the ashes, humanity cannot escape its hunger for power and its hope for salvation.